Hello everybody, this is Matt with eSeekAdvanced.com. Today coming out with a review of the Zmax from Smok. This is the Smok Zmax. We did purchase this from All About Vapor. I do believe the price was $125 for the device itself and two 18350 IMR 800 milliamp hour batteries. This device is unique, and it's unique because it's variable voltage, which isn't unique, but it's also variable power or variable wattage, so it does both. It is adjustable via the voltage selector between 3 volts and 6 volts, and is also adjustable via the power setting between 3 watts and 15 watts. The voltage is adjustable in 0.1 increments. The wattage is adjustable in 0.5 increments. It is pulse width modulated. You have your choice of using either two 18350 batteries, or how I have it set up, a single 18650. So people complained about the Vmax for a couple of reasons. This is the Vmax now, not the Zmax. The Vmax, people complained for 2 reasons. One, it uses stacked batteries, and there are people who don't like to do that. Problem solved. Also, because the Vmax was also pulse width modulated, the Vmax was tuned incorrectly, but so much so that a lot of it was unusable. It gave too much power. This one is still pulse width modulated. It is still tuned incorrectly. However, more of this device is usable than the first release of the Vmax. If you like low resistance or standard resistance atomizers, cartomizers, or even rebuildable. Some people like ultra low. We're going to talk about what can be used on this effectively and what can't, and we're going to talk about some of the numbers. Did use this, we did put this on an oscilloscope. We did look at it in both voltage mode and in wattage mode, and we also looked at it with a single 18650 battery and with dual 18350 batteries. Now, if you're going to use it with the dual 18350s, you are supposed to get a longer end cap. This device came to us with the cap for the 18650, but it came with 18350 batteries. I do not have the extended cap to use these batteries. You can make these work in here. You're just going to get, it's going to have a little bit of a gap in it. It doesn't quite thread all the way on, but it does make contact and it does work. So let's take a look at it. We're going to talk about the menu functions. We're going to talk about how to operate it, and then we're going to talk about the numbers and see about how, how does this device stack up against other devices that are direct out, DC voltage out. And we're going to take a look at those. And that's what you get. And the batteries we got, two unlabeled IMR 18350 800 milliamp hour batteries. Were in a sealed bag, in the box, not in this box, but in the shipping box with it. And that's what we got. It was $125 from All About Vapor. All right, let's talk about some of the features of this. You do have a large LCD screen. You do have a nice button, and we do have a taller Ego fitting 510 connection. It doesn't really have the Ego threads on the outside of here, but you have a very large drip well, and many of your Ego devices will fit inside that well. They've changed the styling a little bit and have given, these dimples on the outside end caps instead of the lightning bolts that were on the Zmax. It does feel heavier. It does feel sturdier. The threads are better than the Vmax was. The button is 100 times better than the Vmax was. And overall, where I was unimpressed with the Vmax when it first came out and it felt cheap to me, this does not. This feels a whole lot sturdier. It feels good in the hand. It's got a good heft to it. And the end cap is a little more utilitarian for people who like to use, Stardust or Ego type cones and things. The blue, or sorry, the LED is blue. It gives you power. I have it set to power mode, or it gives your voltage, or it can give whatever you set it to, or you can turn it off. And we're going to talk about the menu functions here shortly. So that's what you get. All right, let's talk about the menu system. Right now it's set in power mode. Click the button 3 times and you'll get the first menu, which is power up. And you can go up in power in 0.5 increments. Once you get to 15, it does cycle back to 3. Neat thing about this mod is when it's in power mode, you take out the battery, put a new battery in, it remembers what your power setting was. It doesn't do that in voltage mode, but it does it in power mode. Alright, click the button again, 3, get your power up. The second menu option is power down. So, again, 0.5 increments, get to 3, and it round robins back to, to 15. Alright, click the button 3 times, power up, power down. This turns the device on and off. So now it's on, now it's off. And then when you push the button, you just get the 3 little hash marks. The atomizer will not fire. And it's pocket safe now. Turn it back on. You go back to 3. And turn it back on. Fourth menu option is the voltage remaining on your battery. So I've got 4.1 volts left on this battery. When you have 2 batteries in there, it will show you the remaining battery combined. Voltage option 5, it gives you your resistance, you get your voltage, or your power. And the voltage is battery remaining. So when you push the button and you have the screen lighting up, you can either show what your output is, whether it's in power or in volts, which is the PO. You can have your resistance, which is the A, of your atomizer. So every time you fire it, say if you have a 3 ohm Cardo on there, it'll just say 3. Or you can have your remaining battery life show up every time you push the button. So those are your options there. Option 6. This is your display on or off. So now it's off. When I push the button, I don't get the display, no lights light up, and it's more of a stealth mode. When you go, you can still access the menu functions by pushing the button 3 times, but anything else won't turn the screen off. Turn it up, turn it back on, and when you push it, you get your output, or whatever you have it set to. And the last function, function 7, this is to switch between power or voltage. So, now we're in voltage mode, 2, 3, and we can go up in 3 or in 0.1 increments with our voltage. One last thing I wanted to show you is that you see I have the device set to 3.7 volts. If I remove the battery, and I'm just going to unscrew the cap because it's essentially the same thing, you're breaking that circuit connection. And if you wait for just a second and put it back in, like if you're going to do a rapid battery change, it'll remember. However, if you take the battery out and say you have to go get your battery, or you have to go do something else, or you put the mod away and you want to come back and use it later, and your device is sat out here for a while, and now you're putting it in, put your battery back in it, resets to 3 volts. However, in the power mode, I have let this mod sit for a day or 2 without a battery in it, put it back in, comes right back on at 7 watts or wherever I had it set. So keep that in mind. It remembers for power, it does not remember for voltage. Okay, let's talk about numbers. Again, a lot of hubbub in the community about pulse width modulation mods coming out of China that are pulse width modulated and are not accurate. And for whatever reason, companies, Smok, pretty much all the rest of them, are tuning these devices to the voltage average. However, when you're talking about a pulse width or a pulse train, using voltage average is not an accurate way of expressing the equivalent output voltage of a device like this. We needed to use something called the root mean square, or VRMS. Those little pocket scopes that we use as reviewers don't really measure that correctly, and so we here at eSig Advanced decided it was a good idea to go ahead and purchase a very expensive but very useful bench oscilloscope and to look at these numbers more accurately. Now, I'm not going to go through it in this video because I don't think it's necessary, but I do want to say that overall, when set in voltage mode, the voltage average numbers, if you set it to 3, your voltage average is 3. That is wrong. That's how we used to, that was our misunderstanding of how these things should work. The voltage average is not the correct measurement. But this device, 3 is 3, 4 is 4, 5 is pretty close to 5, 6 is 6. So looking at those numbers on those handheld pocket oscilloscopes, we would look at it and say, okay, yeah, these numbers are right, but man, this thing, 4 volts feels hot to me. Well, the reason for that is voltage RMS, the root mean square. So set at 3 volts. It does vary somewhat. I'm going to give an example just using a 3 ohm cartomizer, but like everything that's tuned to the voltage average, the VRMS is going to change with resistance. So with a 3 ohm cartomizer, it's 4.16 volts equivalent voltage out. With a lower resistance carto, it's actually going to be a little bit lower. But the numbers I have right in front of me are for the 3 ohm cartomizer. So 4.16 volts at the 3 volt setting. At the 4 volt setting, we are getting 4.8 volts out. So not quite a volt difference. At the 5 volt setting, we're getting 5.44 volts out. And at the 6 volt setting, we're actually getting 5.9 because it goes to a linear DC output at that point. This is using the 18650 battery. Totally different ball game when we switch to the dual 18350s. So, tested with those. The 3 volt setting is actually now 4.56 volts. So it's even higher if you're using stacked batteries. It's more off. 4 volts becomes 5.28 volts. 5 volts becomes 5.9 volts. And 6 volts is 6.5. So while it does become more accurate as the device gets closer to 6, using stacked 18350 batteries, it is more inaccurate than using a single 18650. Again, that has to do with the peak to peak, which is the amplitude of the wave, and the duty cycle, which is how much the percent of time that the device is turned on. So when you're using stacked batteries, you're going to have a higher peak to peak and a lower duty cycle, and that's going to alter your numbers. However, when you look at the voltage averages between either battery setup, 18650 or 18350s stacked, the averages are right on. So Smok, retune it, and it'll be awesome. But as it stands, it's still too hot. All right, now let's talk about it again in wattage mode. In variable wattage mode, again, it's adjustable from 3 watts to 15 watts. I just looked at it at 4 little snapshots. I looked at it at 3 watts, I looked at it at 7 watts, I looked at it at 12 watts, and I looked at it at 15 watts. And I used it with 2 different resistances this time because I wanted to show or talk about the differences in that. But again, for this video, I'm just going to talk about it with 3 ohms. Keep in mind, if you're using a lower resistance, it's actually going to put out a little bit higher wattage than the standard resistance. Talking 0.2 of a watt. But just for the sake of brevity, I'm going to talk about the 3 watt or the 3 ohm cartomizer. So set at 3 watts using voltage average, which is what this device does. The predicted output using a 3 ohm cartomizer is 3.2 watts. Hey, that's pretty good, right? Well, we can't use V average. Using VRMS, it's actually 6.2. In the dual battery mode, it's actually 7.4. So again, higher if you use stacked batteries. In the single battery configuration, at 7 watts, V average predicted, it's like 7.4. That would be great if that's what we used. But with the VRMS, it's actually 9.2 watts. So set to 7 watts on here, you're actually getting and experiencing 9.2. At 12, with the single battery, you're getting 12, actually 11.7. And the reason for that is you've reached the limit of this battery to push anymore. So you're getting a linear DC voltage. So it's right about 11.7 watts. So, and again, if you go to 6 volts, it's the same. It's not going to go any higher. I'm sorry, not 6 volts. If you go to 15 watts, it's still going to give you 11.7 watts because it can't push anymore. Now, when you go to dual battery mode, however, in the 12 watt setting, the voltage average predicts it at about 13.5. However, VRMS is actually giving 15.4. So that's a lot. You're actually getting 15.5 watts set at 12 using the dual battery. You're getting 12 with a single battery, but if you switch to the dual battery, you're actually getting 15. And then again, at the 15 watt setting, which is the highest watt setting you can go, with a single battery, you're going to get 12 because it can't give any more. However, with the dual batteries, you're going to get 17.4 watts, which that's a lot. That's a lot. So, well, what does this tell us? A, the device is tuned too high. Does that make it bad? No, it just makes it wrong. If you like single coil, low resistance cartomizers or atomizers, or you like to build your own rebuildable atomizers with ultra low resistance coils, probably not a good idea to do it on this because it's going to give you too much power even at its lowest setting. However, one thing I can think that this would be great for is people who like to vape at those high wattages, who like to vape at 15 watts. Specifically people who use dual coil cartomizers. If you have a 1.5 dual coil, keeping in mind that those are 2 3 ohm coils in there running in parallel, you know, 14, 15 watts, it's hot, but it's doable. And some people like that. Those are the people who will really, really like the Zmax. Again, if you have a Vmax and you like it, you'll like the Zmax. I like it because I can set it, you know, again, I like a 3 ohm or standard resistance cartomizer in a tank. I like to vape around 8.5 watts. So I know if I set this to 6.5 or set it to 7, I'm going to be happy with it. I also like to I like to do rebuildable atomizers, and when I use that, I don't use this device. I have something else. However, for my standard going out all day vape, where I like a standard resistance cartomizer in a tank, this does work for me. And I just have to be cognizant that what I'm setting isn't what I'm getting, so I have to know what this device can do. And I'm sorry for the long and lots of numbers and all that kind of stuff, because I know a lot of you guys don't care. You just want to know, does the device work? Well, it does. But I think the numbers in this case are important because you have to know that your screen isn't telling you the truth. And a lot of you are just going to have to go by feel on that. So if you're used to wattage, say you have a Darwin, or you have a Kick, or you have lucky enough to have one like a J-Box or an Opus, and you're used to variable wattage, you just have to keep in mind this isn't going to give you what you think you're getting. If you're used to variable voltage and you have a ProVary or you have a Buzz Pro or something that's accurate to what it says it is, You have to realize that when you set the voltage on here, it's not really what you're getting. As long as you understand that, this is fine. Hopefully soon China will get the message and we'll start tuning these devices correctly, and then we can take all these numbers and all that stuff and say, you know what, it's right, it's great, vape on and vape happy. However, right now we can't do that, and I just want you guys to know that when you're getting this, you need to know what you're getting. Aside from the numbers being wrong, I think Smok has greatly improved their quality control, where I was not happy with my first generation Vmax at all. I like this one. I would buy this. I'd probably wait until they fix the voltage and the output issues. But as it stands, it's usable to me. It seems like it's pretty decent quality, and I do use this. So that's pretty much my take on the Zmax. For more reviews and content, coupon codes, and other information, check out esigadvanced.com. Be sure to check out our forum at esigadvanced.com/forums and our Vape for Free store. Thank you for watching.